Ann Coulter will be with us next on 710 WOR. Let's see what she thinks about Biden's crime speech, this election tampering, and more. Well, Ann Coulter, of course, the best-selling author. If you haven't read all of her books, you should. Each one of them just as relevant today. You can go to AnnCoulter.com. You can get her books there. Follow her on Twitter, Ann Coulter at Twitter. Ann Coulter, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you, Mark Simone?
Very good. Joe Biden making the most important speech of his presidency today in the afternoon. You know, he can't be up at night, so we can't do it in prime time. But the idea is to go after crime, but instead of going after criminals, it looks like he's just going after legitimate gun dealers, as if that's the problem. What do you think?
These experts, from COVID to violent crime and murders, they just won't admit when they are spectacularly wrong. Though I think, average citizens can see what's happening. We had the racial reckoning with George Floyd. Police departments were attacked, demoralized, defunded. Mayors like Bill de Blasio and our city council have these. The worst thing for New York was the no bail laws. As I'm sure your listeners know, you have these violent felons committing crimes. The police go to the hard work of catching them, arresting them, bringing them in, and no bail means they're not held. They're not held. They're right back out on the street, and within 24 hours, there they are mugging and raping again. I mean, to act like these solutions, creative ideas to policing. No, we tried this for decades in the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, and the streets ran with blood. The murder rate was through the roof. And then, yay, Giuliani, Bill Bratton, Reagan and his judges came in, and suddenly, you had New York Times headlines, crime goes down, but no one seems to know why. Solutions, mysterious. No, normal people can see, lock up criminals. That's what you need to do. But no, that's off the table for Democrats. And I would add that in particular, at least I didn't watch the speech live. I've read some of the articles on it, or skimmed them, I should say. It's hilarious that the specific gun proposals Biden has come up with are those most likely to affect the law-abiding gun collector. The ghost gun is my favorite. That's for gun hobbyists who can make their own guns. You think a lot of criminals are making their own guns, are studying the mechanics of how a gun works. These are the people who are the least likely to be involved in crimes. But yeah, I mean, I guess they'll keep doing this, and all law-abiding citizens can do is lie back and think of the midterms and think of the next presidential election, because this is the Democratic Party. They want crime in the streets. They will keep making the same mistakes over and over again, costing people's lives until the end of time.
So when you talk about systemic racism, wouldn't you agree it's the Democrats that run these cities? You talk about systemic racists. They make sure in the minority neighborhoods they got the worst schools, they got the worst crime. What else could you do to put people at a disadvantage than those two things?
No, you're absolutely right. BLM stands for Black Lives Murdered. The murder rate, and particularly among black males, has gone up astronomically since the George Floyd racial reckoning. And strikingly, I mean, you keep getting these articles in places like the New York Times. We can't figure out what happened. Well, maybe this obsessively telling black males that they're being discriminated against and screaming at cops for enforcing the law against them hasn't helped. It's striking not only by the date of the beginning with the George Floyd protest. By the way, not beginning with the pandemic. All of this nonsense about, I think it's people just went crazy during the pandemic and that's what caused the riots. Well, no, that's not when it started. It started very distinctly with the George Floyd incident and the protests afterwards. But moreover, it particularly went up in the states and cities where there were the biggest protests against police violence. I mean, it didn't happen uniformly against the country, so you couldn't get a clearer social science experiment on what caused this massive increase in crime. I also note, related to your point, it looks like, well, for one thing, Mark, you got to get rid of this ranked voting.
Okay, now will you explain this to us? Last night...
Sorry, I left subjects, but it's related.
Okay, but this ranked choice, the Democrats said, we don't have a winner, but we're taking the ballots somewhere, and 3 weeks from now we'll get back to you. Where the hell do these ballots go for 3 weeks?
Yeah, this is totally going to instill confidence in the result. I will say Eric Adams is way out ahead. As you know, I've been gingerly suggesting that he was the best in the field because he is the one who was just talked obsessively about crime and saying, I'm not going to have security. I'll carry a sidearm. So and he's a good 10 points ahead. I suspect that it will end up being Eric Adams, the ranked choice voting. I mean, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you vote, you citizen, you vote for your number one choice. And if your number one choice is such a loser that he is last of the 10 candidates, the voting system says, well, but you must have some important insights. We'll give you a second bite at the apple.
Yeah.
How about you vote for a loser? We don't want to hear from you again. We're going to go with the people who have some sense of these things. So you have as you say, that we're going to take the ballots away for 3 weeks. You have total lack of confidence in the election. Number two, you're elevating the opinions of the most clueless voters. Number three, we'd really like to know. But assuming it is Eric Adams, this is what I was driving at, to link the two subjects when I abruptly seemed to leap to ranked voting. According to that little New York Times map, very, very detailed on how people voted in which parts of the city. It was, in fact, the black areas that voted for Eric Adams. Yes, he's a black man. He's also a former policeman. And again, most strikingly, no matter what the question was, his answer was, we've got to get crime under control. And none of the others came close to that.
Except he says all the right things, except everybody that ever worked with him in the NYPD said, don't trust this guy. We don't know if he's sincere.
I know.
But why not? Didn't it make sense if nobody wins, let's have a runoff in a few weeks. That way everybody takes another look for a few weeks, more campaigning, more debates. And didn't that make sense? Why? And if this ranked choice is supposed to save us time, why didn't they have the answer last night? Where are these ballots going to sit for 3 weeks, and who's watching them?
Well, the other thing I'd say, if they pretend what they're trying to do here is avoid a runoff, okay, you can do that by having people have a first and second choice, and if the top, on the first run, the number one and number two vote getter, neither surpasses 50%, which is the way these things usually work in states that leads to a runoff. Okay, then we'll go to your second choice voter. But no, this complicated system is elevating the votes of the voters who are most at odds with their fellow, with the rest of the electorate.
Yeah, listen, ranked choice.
Or just get rid of runoffs and say whomever gets the most votes. That's another way to get rid of runoffs.
Yeah, but I just picture Rahm Emanuel and George Soros in the committee in a back room coming up with this scheme, and we're supposed to believe it's to save money, to save time and money. Yeah, that's something the government always tries to do.
Yes. So. No, I totally 100% agree. I think I'm who knows? I'm speculating, but my speculation would be that the candidate who came in number two is the crazy progressive AOC endorsed Bill de Blasio trained Maya Wiley. My suspicion is she's not a lot of people's number two choice. That's a fanatic's choice. We want to totally defund the police and take away landlords' property socialize everything. That's not going to be, I don't know, I'll take her as my second choice. No, those are the George Soros fanatical voters, so I suspect she will not gain. Perhaps Catherine Garcia will.
Okay, let's hope you're right. Let's hope you're right. So everybody go to AnnCoulter.com and if you haven't read all of her books, get them, especially Mugged and Demonic. They all apply today. AnnCoulter.com. Follow her on Twitter. It's Ann Coulter Twitter. And the new column comes out tonight?
Yes, it does.
All right, so be looking for that. AnnCoulter.com.
Usually I give you a hint, but I'm not giving you a hint this time.
Oh, that means it's a good one coming up. Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
Good to talk to you, Mark Simone. Bye-bye.
Take care.